again to all of our loyal listeners. My name's Priscilla.
And I'm Jessie.
And welcome to another episode of
Nena's Hangout.
Yay!
So, did you know that men die by suicide nearly 4 times more than women, and that over 1 in 5 men report having no close friends? We're in the middle of a loneliness epidemic, and the way masculinity has been shaped, sometimes praised, sometimes weaponized, plays a huge role in this crisis.
So today, we're breaking it all down. What does it mean to be a man in today's world? How do we tell the difference between maturity and immaturity when it comes to masculinity? And most importantly, how can we all, as a community, help rewrite the narrative so our brothers, fathers, partners, and friends don't suffer in silence? This one's for all the men in our lives. The boy moms, the girlfriends, the sisters, for all of us.
Now, to help us navigate this conversation, I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Mauricio. He's not just an insightful voice on this topic, but someone who has lived and reflected on what it means to be a man in today's world.
Yay!
So
Welcome!
Hello, ladies.
Yes, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, again, my name's Mauricio. I'm 29 years old. I live here in Texas. Been here since 2001. Was born in Canada. Parents to Argentinian, Uruguayan parents. But I've lived here all my life, pretty much.
And what can you tell us about the men in your life? Especially the ones that stand out to you, the one that you look up to.
At work, in family.
Yeah, to me, it's going to be my dad. It's very simple. He's been there since the beginning. A lot of my uncles and stuff live in Canada or Argentina. I have one here, but honestly, my dad was there. I can just remember some of my earliest memories with him. So I always look up to him.
So can you help us define what is masculinity and why we should use the term immature masculinity instead of toxic masculinity?
Yeah, I think masculinity is a big spectrum, honestly. I think every guy kind of sees it a little bit differently. To me, some of the key points is bravery is one of them, and strength. You have to be brave to be, I think, a man. When things go rough, you kind of have to let go of the fears and really have that knight in shining armor kind of thing, going. Another one is going to be being adventurous. It also ties into risk taking. Guys are more likely to take risk, to be honest. But that's how we progress forward, adventuring out to different lands, risking on this experiment or that kind of, I think, defines what being a man is. Another thing is going to be leadership. That's a big one. I think leadership, though, is kind of a tricky one, just because I've met women that are great with leadership. And you as a man always want to kind of be the lead in a lot of things, but some guys do struggle with that. So that's something I think a lot of guys could work on, just to be a leader. But being a leader also comes with being accountable. Being accountable is a big thing as a guy. You can't progress forward if you can't hold yourself accountable, or even the people or the community that look up to you. And then the last one is honesty. If you're not honest with yourself, then you can't grow. And you can't be honest with other people. And if you can't be honest with other people, then you can't really, I think, help grow the next generation. So that's kind of what I define, I think, manhood is. And then toxic masculinity is kind of tricky. I think that we've been using it kind of sparingly, and it really hurts, I think, the community. I think moving to a more mature and immature masculinity can help us grow. We all start at a young age, so we're very young. That's being immature. It's the same thing with guys, but if we don't have a good role model, or even trying to learn or be progressive in what we do, then we will be stuck in that immature ways. We want to grow masculinity to be mature,
Just for everyone out there, we're not saying that these characteristics, women cannot hold these characteristics. I think just how we use the term being your divine femininity, this is like being in their divine masculinity, We're not saying that women can't have leadership, but they can't be honest. No, it's just characteristics that you think, I'm assuming, defines a man and manhood.
Yeah.
What's a belief about masculinity that you used to hold but now realize was damaging? And how did unlearning it change your relationships?
There's a lot of things. Growing up, we all make mistakes. I think one of the big ones, though, as a man, was my pride, and being egotistical. Early 20s, guys, they get the first job, the first paycheck, the first girlfriend, real serious relationship. It can get to our heads, and that occurred to me. And it wasn't easy. Life really, though, brought me down. I was really, really high up with my job. I had the money, I was out, and it was fun and everything. But that wasn't really being, I think, a good role model to other younger men in my life, or even teenagers. I have a younger brother, and he was seeing all that, and he's like, oh, I'm making all this money, and I have this car, and I have all this, but life has this way of bringing you down. So that was something I really had to unlearn. It was really tough, though, because it put me back at rock bottom. Everything I did have, I did not have when that happened, and that was money. I was in a really bad relationship, and I was away from home. And I put myself in these really stressful situations. And after that, coming out of that and rebuilding myself, that's what kind of taught me I don't have to be like that to be a man. I don't have to be like that to get someone or to get money. I just can be me and be playful and still have that little bit of the hopeful boy that every guy has, I think, inside. And so that was a learning experience for me.
When you see yourself from an outsider's perspective, from a third person, would you consider yourself like your own role model as well, as a man or as a person?
I do. I really do, because you have to hold yourself accountable. That can also be something good. It doesn't always have to be something bad. Like accountability doesn't have to be, oh, I did something wrong. You can always be like, you know what? I did that right. Yeah. And then you treat yourself and you learn. Exactly. So to me, it was something that I do look at myself now, when I do falter, because all people falter, not just men and women. But, if I see myself maybe diving into these immature masculinity traits, I can be like, no, let's back it up. Let's take some time and let's grow from this. So.
Men are often told to man up. We see this term thrown like everywhere. Do you think that's a positive thing? And what does it really mean to be a man?
Ooh, manning up. I think all guys have heard this. All guys.
Yeah.
You have to man up, oh, you fell on your knee and you scratched it. Man up, right? This whole entire thing, I think that's a negative way of using it, honestly. Yeah. I think there's positive ways of using it, Like, let's say you do something wrong, right? And then your father figure, uncle, older brother goes, you got to man up. That's yourself holding yourself accountable. Yeah. That's them being like, you have to.
Like if you get someone pregnant.
Exactly.
Take responsibility of your actions.
Yes, if you get someone pregnant, you have to man up, right? Yeah. But when you hear that man up, like let's take the example of someone getting pregnant. When we say man up, it's not like we have to be this toxico type of guy, right? Where we have to control. Yeah, we have to control everything, or we even dictate what the woman's going to do at that point, right? Because maybe you guys are both not on the same line, and you have to. And there's a lot of guys that force that on women, and I think manning up in that scenario is going to be something of like, all right, I messed up, but I'm bringing a life into this world. Yeah, I need to take care of it.
Take responsibility.
I need to also take care of the person that I did this to, which is the woman, right? So.
Yeah. And what does it really mean to be a man? Because we have all these like social media people telling us, oh, you have to do this and achieve this checklist in order to be a man. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Again, this is kind of subjected to every man, right? Yeah. Social media and all that's going to pose this idea of what a perfect man is. I think being a man is realizing what you have to bring to the table, if you can bring it to the table, and how can you bring it to the table. I think those three things is kind of how you define what being a man is. I think once you hit that, I can bring this to the table, I know what I'm not good at, I know what I'm good at, and then put that out, especially in relationships or in friendships, then you can be, you know what, I am a man, or when you have to make a hard decision. There's a lot of times, I mean, I'm not just saying women cannot make hard decisions, but when it is a hard decision, you have to act quick. You have to be on it, and you can't falter because everybody around you in a way is looking up to you, These tie into what I said earlier, leadership, accountability, and honesty.
Or like the advice that I've gotten from all the girlies on TikTok, it's like, find yourself a high value man, find yourself a man in finance,
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah,
and how does that affect like manhood?
I mean, just like that puts so much pressure on us, right? Because, we just can't we can't get there. A lot of guys can't, the magical 666 rule,
Which is
6 feet, 6 figures, and 6 inches, and not every guy can get there, some of it's genetic, some of it is just
genetics.
Height, but you can't do anything about it, but like tearing them down, just like, it has like a very big impact because when that happens, then everyone around them or everybody around them is hard struck. That could be their mother, that could be their sisters, that could be their aunts, that could be anybody,
Yeah, and just how we don't like having, these type of rules and expectations from women, we don't want to set those for men too.
Yes.
Yes. So men don't always express love and care for each other the way that women do, right? We have sisterhood, but tell us of a time when a male figure truly showed up for you.
I think it will have to do with my dad. I know I'm bringing up my dad, but my dad is, I think, he is a guy that never really got understood growing up and then being a father and stuff. But I think my dad, when he went and picked me up in Nebraska, he was in Mexico. I called him in less than 24 hours. He was in Omaha. And he's like, we're going to just drive back to Texas, He really showed up for me. And he wasn't yelling at me. He wasn't, I told you so. He wasn't anything. The first thing he asked is like, how are you doing? How are you
okay?
Are you okay? How are you feeling? And I just cried for like 2 hours from Lincoln to Omaha. But it was a 10-hour drive where I think me and him could finally understand, what that manhood is, of like, we all suffer, and I suffer something very similar that he did when he was younger. He just never escaped it. So for him to see me in the same boat, it was really big on that man-to-man time, I would say. It wasn't drinking, it wasn't smoking, it wasn't talking bad about any other people. It was just holding ourselves accountable and understanding this is the game plan, this is how we're going to do it. And so when I got back to Texas, I felt like I knew what I could do. I knew what I have to do, and I know how to get there. And it was a lot of sacrifices for me to get there. And I think a lot of guys miss that. I think back in the day, way back in the day when, guys used to go to war and stuff, all they had around them was guys, and, seeing their friends die and stuff. But nowadays, everybody's kind of all over the place. And
we live in a very individualistic society. We have, and I think it's teaching men to suffer in silence, which is so bad because we also punish them when they break. Oh, you're being like weak, and it's so sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad. But I hope we can bring that back.
Yeah.
I hope our generation is the one that brings back, like, I don't know what it's the opposite of sorority for men, but like
a fraternity.
yes, fraternity in manhood, because like sorority, that means like, a community of women, sisterhood. I think that's what's missing in men. I
mean, but we're so divided, we've been left such in the dust that we're so divided as men. Let's just take the cowboys and the people that live in the inner city. Like, there's really no way they can connect, and a lot of things, even politically, have divided men, where it's really tough, like one wrong opinion and you're shunned, and then now you're back again alone at your house or, in your room, and you can't do anything.
And I do believe that as women, we have fought a lot to make our voices be heard. March 8th, International Women's Day. Yay, I love that. But at the same time, I think it's so easy, and we see it in pop culture, like with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, right? Like, she accused him of like sexual harassment and assault when he didn't do anything, and we are so quick to believe women, which I love women. I will always believe women, but think about the other side of the coin, right? How does that affect the men in society, like their jobs, their respect, their honor?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when a man loses respect, it's like he lost everything, because then nobody's going to trust him, nobody's going to give him the opportunities, and he can't even defend himself. We're just stuck as he's the villain, and that's it. And most of us guys, we really just try to keep to ourselves, and some of us keep too much to ourselves, and we cry in silence, or we deal with it in other ways. A big thing is suicide. 4 times, the rate, and we don't go out there and go, hey, maybe these guys need help. Maybe they need, some mental, assessments, or what is going on, or, I think
that reminds me of another statistic saying that like male virginity is an all-time high, and that it jumped from 8% in 2008 to 28% in 2018. So like more men aren't having sex, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's just imagine, like, you go your whole life, you have barely any friends, you're a social outcast, and now you're thrown into the real world, and you're making money, but you have nothing to enjoy with. Nobody pays you the time. Nobody cares because
you're not 6 feet tall, or you're like,
or any of that stuff, and it sucks, and it happens to a lot of guys. A lot of guys are very, very lonely. There's a lot of guys that can't even get a date. We can't even go up to women anymore and just
at the bar.
Or ask for a number, because automatically we're a creep. Automatically we're this. Automatically we're trying to get in your pants. It's not really that. We're just actually lonely. It's true loneliness. We can't just wake up and be like, we're having a boys' night. It doesn't. It doesn't really happen like that. It's just like you lose friends as time goes on too. Because we're so busy. And then eventually you lose family, and then that's pretty much it. You're left alone. And I think it's a shame, because I think as men, when we come in together, we have done a lot in history. Some great stuff, some very awful stuff. But it's always when we come together. And I feel like we as men society, as just manhood, we haven't really progressed. And it's really, really sad. So.
With that being said, I think that it's a great transition into our next question. Like, how can we fight this loneliness epidemic for men, and how can we foster brotherhood? What is the solution?
Ladies, just give us one compliment. We'll never forget it, literally. But that's true, though. I mean, we don't even get a thank you. We open the door for someone, and we don't even get a thank you. And that's from men and women. We don't really, guys don't even receive flowers. Guys don't even receive gifts. Like, we just go on our day, good job from the boss, and then you go home, and that's it. I bet you every guy that's ever received a compliment, like an actual compliment throughout the day, like they're just walking, they will think about it for years. For years, because you won't hear one unless it's your mom or your sister. But in reality, you don't. And I think we need to stop dividing, men and women here, men here. I think it should be a combined effort of, like, it doesn't have to be a man who tells another man, hey, what's going on? It could sometimes just be a woman, hey, are you okay? And we're just humans too. We will say, no, we're not. But I think once we understand that it's okay to hurt and talk about it, you can't fix a problem if the problem isn't even, like, analyzed. Addressed, right?
Like, there's no room in the media to talk about this.
But how can us as women, or I guess as people, make someone, in this case, a man, talk when nowadays, or actually, I mean, it's always been the case, right, with men do suffer in silence? How can we make them talk about it? Like, is there something as, like, that you can tell from their eyes, like, from a hey, like, how are you, and then just being like, what if they're just telling you good?
Yeah, that's a tough thing. It's a trust thing, right? We're afraid to lend that, because we don't know what's gonna happen,
Because unless you're hot.
you're just, you're just weird,
Yeah.
And even if you open up, then someone might use it against you. That's like some of the biggest fears that men have is, if we open up, we're not considered men anymore. We're not strong, we're not passionate, we're not this, we're just emotional creatures. But that has to be a balance though, and I think that's kind of tough when it comes to that, because a lot of guys will lie. They will lie to you. You know, and it sucks, because they do suffer alone pretty much in that sense. I think the way to fix this is, it's tough to say if this generation can fix that, but I think it's the generation moving forward, right? I think if mothers actually show that being emotional isn't such a bad thing, and even fathers too, then it helps men grow for the future generations to be like, hey, I'm upset, I might need some time, or I need to talk, or I'm feeling stressed, As society progresses forward, we're seeing that everybody's becoming more equal. Then that doesn't mean that we have to shoulder everything ourselves, and break that stigma that men have to shoulder everything. So I think that's probably a good way to start,
What's something, Mauricio, that you're still working on as a man that you don't think people talk about enough?
I think the loneliness part. I think that it could be tough opening up, honestly. It could be tough even opening up to myself. I think a lot of guys just continue and don't even look inward and go, there's something wrong. They just continue until they explode or they misfire. You know?
How did you look inward? How did you get through your loneliness?
Luckily, I've had amazing women around me the last couple of years that have allowed me to open up, or I've seen them, how they handle it. And so for me, it's the more I see that, and the more that they're like, hey, what's going on? I can freely now just say, hey, I'm not feeling good, and I won't get judged. That's the best thing. I just won't get judged. I go, okay, what can I do, or what can we do to help you out through this? But I mean, it's an everyday battle. It's like an old dog. You can't teach new tricks. As older I get, some of my old habits still remain as when I was a teenager, when I was really, truly lonely,
So, do you think finding purpose as a man can help with this loneliness?
Yeah, I think if men pick up a hobby or actually do what they love, especially for work, it can help, because a lot of guys only really have friends when they go to work.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just going to work and those are the people that you see, and then you come home and then there's nobody there, at all. Nobody texts you, be like, hey, how are you and stuff. A lot of guys experience that. Nobody doesn't even pick up the phone and call them and go, hey, how are you doing? And that can go for days, weeks, months, or even years. And it's sad, So when you go to work, you try to connect with these other
Girls,
people.
reach out to your guy friends right now.
I was literally gonna say,
Send a text
call
message right
them,
now.
how are you?
Yeah, because like I always said, one compliment, we'll never forget it. We will never forget it because it's so sparingly that we, get it. I think for women, you guys get, I feel like women get complimented so much that it doesn't.
By each other as well,
But it's
for sure.
But you hear it all the time, right? So eventually, as you get older, it's just thank you so much, But for a guy to hear something like that, they're like, oh my God, it's like my whole life is about to change.
Yeah.
It's my lucky day.
Yeah, and they feel so happy going home, sitting down, they have a smile, But when that occurs for that day, there's so much productivity that happens, I feel like, in guys. But and that's it. And then they won't get one for many, many years later, and then that's when it recycles again. But it's tough. It's a balance, I think. I think when it comes to us really just letting us express ourselves. I think that's the tough one. So hobbies, that could be video games. Even if it's 2 hours, it's not that we're ignoring our girlfriends or you doing this or doing that. It's just it's that competitive side, right? Yeah. It's that, I'm in my own little world. I geek out or I nerd about this stuff. It's because that's what really brings us happiness. And I think once we eliminate kind of that judgment too of like hobbies and stuff, then it can be more normalized of like, oh, he's just enjoying his time like anybody else does.
Yeah.
You know?
What changes would you like to see in men and how society views masculinity?
In men, what I like to see is to be more accountable. I want to see more accountability. I want to see more honesty, not just on the outside, but also inward. Like guys that just like sit there at home and just like behind the keyboard, just like typing away in Reddit about this one thing. Like, I want them to realize, be like, I'm not really getting anything. You know, like, let me take a step back. Let me go to the mirror. Let me see how I look. Let me put myself together a little bit. Let me go to the gym. I want to see guys do that for themselves more than do that for society.
Or for the ladies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because once you do it for yourself, everything else I think falls in line.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's one thing I think guys can do.
You know, that reminds me, recently I went on TikTok and I saw, I'm always talking about TikTok, I'm sorry guys, but there's this account of a barber that would change people's lives. Like, the transformation and the
I think I know what
smile.
you're talking
Yeah, like,
about.
you know, they have really, I don't know, shaggy hair, and then he would just like do his magic and they'll like look 10 years younger and it's so much hotter.
Well, a haircut and beard, like it is our makeup. It's our makeup, pretty much, you know. Like, but
so you've been putting off that, you know, that hair appointment.
I mean, my self-care is going to the barber every 2 weeks. I go to a barber. He cuts my hair. You know, he does a hot towel. It's like my own de-stressor. Massages my shoulders, not in a weird way, just with like a little massage gun. And I'm just like, this is nice. Like, I worked really hard these last 2 weeks. Let me just go and feel. Let me go feel hot. That's what guys want to be like. Let me go, let me just go, like, get out of here, let the wind hit, you know, my
I think a lot of people are not doing that. I think they have a lot, I see a lot of men, men in general, that they're on autopilot, and, you know, you'll see them for weeks and they don't get haircuts, and, like, you can see that they're, like, I don't know, living on this autopilot, like, lifestyle, and it's really sad.
It is sad. And so I always tell guys, go take care of yourself. Go get a haircut. Go trim your beard, you know.
Start working out.
Go to the gym.
Yes.
Go on a walk, you know. Try different things. And I think when you start feeling that, then the things around you don't really will matter as much, and you can just start growing by yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I think once you get there, then the community starts to open up to guys that are already there. You know, you don't have to be 6 feet. You don't have to earn six figures. You don't have to be 6 inches. You can just enjoy life the way it is and be proud of who you are.
Yeah.
And that would attract everything that...
It will attract the right
people.
Person,
Exactly.
the right woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
And not just women, but friends,
Yeah.
you know, and other coworkers, and even job opportunities, and you would just continue growing. That was a big thing that I actually did. That was a big one. When I got back, I didn't really take care of myself that like a lot before the massive breakup that I had when I came back to Texas. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna actually take care of myself. And the more I did that, the better I felt. The better stuff started to happen, and I didn't really have to work so hard to get there.
Yeah.
It was just naturally occurring for me. So I think guys really need to just get out of this autopilot mode. I think that's a big thing. I think the autopilot can become very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So,
But what about how society views masculinity?
to me, I want to stop feeling like I'm enemy number one.
Like a what?
Enemy number one.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, oh, because I'm a guy, I'm automatically like this.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's not just like from like a girlfriend or even relationship status that we just want equal respect, I guess, from women. We're not trying to hurt y'all. We're just trying to coexist with y'all. And you guys can have all the, you can be as empowered as you want, right? But I think you don't have to bring us down for you guys to also feel powerful. I think that you guys are powerful within y'all's community by itself.
Do you think that that's something we do though currently? Is like bring down men to bring ourselves up?
It's I think it just naturally happens that way. When you said bringing, like, you guys climbing up for us to go down, I think it just naturally happens, and it's not really being realized. You know, like toxic masculinity, right? Like that technically is a way of like putting down like men, you know. But how are we supposed to grow in that sense? You know, we want everybody to be equal, right?
Can I say something? I think I've changed my mind when it comes to feminism, equality, and everything. I want equal opportunities. I don't want to be like a man.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like a man.
No.
Do I really want to fight
I love
wars?
being a woman.
Yes.
Like.
Exactly. I love being feminine. I love being a woman. I don't want to be like a man, but I do want equal opportunities.
And that's okay. And we want that for y'all too.
Yes. But I think the narrative has been shifting of like, oh no, we better have like more women CEOs, which great, yes, or more women representation. We want that as well. But like, I think we have been so loud that like it's pushing men to like this dark little corner.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by like, it just happened, right? It's not that you guys are just one day we're gonna be like, you know what, we women rock, guys suck. It's not really like that. It's just, it naturally happens. And I mean, you can just see it in movies and TV shows, right? The main bad guy is always now a guy. You know, there's, you know, and we don't want to be seen as just an enemy. We're not here to be a roadblock for your guys' success. We want to just be able to lift y'all up. And we don't want you ladies to be us. We don't want you guys to have to deal with, like how she said, going to war. That's not your responsibility. If you want to do it, that's great. But we don't want that for you. You know, we have been carrying that burden for generations now, and is it wrong or is it right? We don't really know, right? But as a man, that's not our duty. Our duty is to protect the women and children, and we want to protect your guys' rights. We want to, you know, encourage y'all to be the best that y'all can be, and we're never gonna clip your wings. You know, we're just there to look at all as society progresses, but we want to also be seen as well. That doesn't mean we have to be the loudest.
Yeah.
You know, it's just equal opportunity for both sides in every aspect. I think is the most important thing.
Yeah. And how can women be a better support for men?
I think it's just understanding that. I think that what you see online and what you see on social media, it are just loud voices. That isn't the majority of what men and women think. I think that if you just put your phone down, you open the door and you walk outside, you will really kind of truly see how things are, and just try to be more understanding of us. You know, are we gonna mess up? Yes. Are we perfect? No. But if we have a good, you know, support, and not just in the man community, but also in the woman community, I think that we can actually progress as men really, really far and really, really fast. So.
Because we don't want to compete with y'all. We want to complement each other. That's a healthy society.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that I feel like women can do better, it's like not have these unrealistic expectations. Oh, I want a provider. I want a protector. And then go and cry and say, oh, my man doesn't open up, or like, you know, he's not like emotionally available.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot have this or that. You know, humanize men. I think men are emotional. Men are very dynamic and very complex, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and for all my girlies out there, remember that men aren't banks, you know, like we can also give them gifts. We can also pay for for the dates every now and then. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you any less valuable of a woman. That doesn't, you know, if anything, it's a token of gratitude, you know. Thank you for you know, being my partner, for being in my team, for being in my corner, for having my back. Like, you know, it's a reminder to them that they're not banks, like I said. They're human beings. That was a good episode.
That was
Yeah.
a good episode.
Yes.
Thank you so much
Yeah, no
for
problem.
coming to the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there something that we didn't ask you that you may want to put out there, or something that you want to say?
I just want to say thank you, ladies, for inviting me to NNS Hangout. I always like to give my perspectives on kind of like how I view things. Are they
Yes.
the right thing? Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. But I always like.
Please
I'm always,
don't cancel us.
Yeah. But I'm always open to having a discussion. I'm not going to judge anybody,
Yes.
you know, and I think that's a big thing. Even if they don't see eye to eye, that doesn't make them a bad person, right? You can still be friends and still have genuine conversations, and I think that will help in all aspects in life.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for staying all the way to this point. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share, you know.
Yes.
Stay on tune with our social media, and I hope that you're looking forward to the new episodes that are coming up.
Yes. Bye.
Bye. See you next time.